fight. I've finished the course. I have kept the faith. This is what I've been about. When I decided this is who I am and I stopped being Saul, I became Paul the Apostle. And at that I set out on a missionary journey because of whose I was. And then that whole process of time now, I've been defining myself and my connection with Jesus, and it is described basically what I am about. And it takes me now to this point right here. Earlier in his life, Paul writes a letter in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. We're thinking about what Paul's done in his battle with Satan. And as he's talking to these people that are living under pressure in an atmosphere that is just, like we said, so immoral, so hard pressure against Christians, he describes their life and his life as being hard pressed. Verse 8, first part there. Crushed, perplexed. But here's what he says back in verse 7. But we, notice Paul doesn't say I, he doesn't say you, but he's in this, it's all of us together as Christians. We have this treasure, as he's been describing here. Depending on your translation, it'll say jars of clay or earthen vessels. We have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellence of the power may be of God and not of ourselves. He's talking about his life, his physical body, and the ministry that God has given him. That's what he is about. It's inside me, he says. It's in this jar of clay. It's rather fragile, in other words. If you drop it, it breaks. But it doesn't matter because you just get another pot. They're just clay pots, you see. What is really of value is what's inside the thing. It's called the treasure, Paul said. We have this treasure, this gospel message that's got to get out there, and this is what I'm about. I'm the earthen vessel, and I carry this treasure to different places, and I give it here and there. This is what I'm about. And we all have this. In the process of time, Satan's going to do what he can do against us, and therefore, he says, we're hard-pressed on every side, but not to despair. So what they were about, Satan kept working against. But it didn't keep him from effectively doing what he was about because he knew who he was and whose he was. And he saw the connection with God. And so as he's writing all of this, he's talking about this power of God may be shown through him. You see, we're not alone in what we're about. So if we can clearly define who we are and whose we are, we're going to be set in the right direction. And God will be helping us all along. You probably heard the story this week. I was so impressed with this guy. Here he is, one of 4 that run this race, relay race for U.S. for 440. So he sets out on the race, and as he's starting down the road, about 200 meters into it, here's a crack. And pain sets in like he can't believe. And he still finishes the whole portion that he's supposed to run, passes the baton to the next guy, and limps off to the edge of the track. Monteo Mitchell from the U.S. team. Later on, when they x-rayed him, his leg was broken. The femur bone was busted. And he recalled, he said, I remember stumbling on the steps back a couple days ago. Didn't think anything about it. And it just totally snapped in two in the midst of that race under the strain. And under all the pain, he kept enduring. And his comments were, I heard it, I felt it, but I just figured it was almost what any person would have done in that situation. I pretty much figured it was broken because every step got more painful. But I was out there already, and I just wanted to finish and do what I was called to do. Even though the track is an individual sport, you've got 3 guys depending on you. The whole world's watching you, and you don't want to let anyone down. It was not his race. It was a team effort, you see. That's what he was about. Now here's the catch. Because as we look at who we are and whose we are, what we're about is not done individually. It's done as a team. So when I step up to the track and I begin running, I not only look at the pressures and the problems and the difficulties that hit me along the way and how it might affect me, but I run for a bigger, not glory, but a bigger group than just myself. But we run for everyone. So these people that have been here since day one in their life in this congregation, we run for them. And those that are sojourning through and raising up and becoming deacons and strong leaders in the congregation, we run together. And the college students that are coming in and starting next week and the ones that are returning back, they run with us. And as we're thinking about who we are as a congregation and what we're about, we have to recognize that we're together in this. And my decision of who I am and whose I am would not only affect my destiny, but theirs as well. So I run. As Paul says, I run the race with endurance that I can finish. So look in the mirror when you go home and ask yourself, who are you? And whose are you? And what you're about. And deacons and elders, and anybody that's teaching classes and all, think about it deeply. About what we're about as a church. And the impact we hope to continue to make in this downtown area. The congregation's been around for over 100 years now. Just a drop in the bucket in life. We need to consider keeping things going. And what you do, and who you are, and how you see yourself impacts every bit along the way. It helps start the ball rolling for college kids that are headed off in their direction. Makes a difference on where they're going and what they're up to. Think about it. As we close the lesson out this morning, I'll come back to that very basic question one more time and say, who are you? Are you a Christian? Have you chosen the path to follow Jesus? Best thing that could ever happen to you in the world is to get out of the world and follow Jesus. If you haven't been baptized for the forgiveness of your sins, although you may be hearing and following and praying, you're not a part of Christ. Become His today if you're ready. Come back to Him if you've left. The neat thing about Christianity is no matter where you've been, you can always return. And the blood of Christ will take care of you. But you got to be willing and dedicated to trying to follow that path. We sing a song right now. Listen to the words. Think about who you are. And if you need to respond to the gospel, you can come while we stand and sing.